Students and learners, welcome back to session 8 of Agroecology Science and Practice. I am Dr. Tadeo Kahigwa Tivasima, lecturer at Mountains of the Moon University in the Faculty of Agriculture. In our previous session, we talked about soil health and microorganisms and nutrient cycling. Today we continue with maintaining a closed system, which is very essential, and among the elements of agroecology you find it in the element of recycling, where the output of one enterprise become the input of another enterprise. And so to say, the reuse of the outputs of one system by another ensures the recycling and optimizes the benefits that we derive. So a closed system on an agroecology farm stands on the principle of improving soil health by fertilizing soils rather than crops and reducing nutrient losses by avoiding waste and unnecessary exports from the farm. A closed system can be achieved through practices such as using legumes for biological nitrogen fixation, increasing crop genetic diversity through intercropping and cover crop integration, implementing agroecological systems such as organic farming and permaculture as they place an emphasis on mixed production of crops and livestock, effective use of organic manures. All these strategies will facilitate having a closed loop on the farm. We can also apply compost to crop and hay fields, but the emphasis is that we feed the soil and not the crop, as opposed to conventional systems where the fertilizer is directly taken by the plant and not enhancing the organic matter in the soil, or at least contributing to other properties of the soil to be better for the plant to derive nutrients from the soil. Effective manure management through covering compost heaps to avoid loss of nutrients through volatilization, for example, and use of soil dressing between layers of manure to reduce initial heating and subsequent nitrogen loss will also help in ensuring that a system on the farm is closed and is not losing nutrients. Use of undersown cover and catch crops, for example, mucuna pruriens. These will reduce the loss of nutrients that would happen through erosion. Use of a mixed farming system that integrates cropping areas with livestock, thereby allowing for cooperative use of manures and utilization of forages. This is actually the emphasis of using the output of one enterprise as input for another enterprise. We can also expand system boundaries to allow for closing of cycles beyond the farm. So this would require a collaboration between different farms, where one farm, if they have an output or what they would call waste, can be used on another farm. Let's say if a neighboring farm has chicken and another one has maize husk, then they could exchange, and one farm is providing the feed for the chicken and the chicken farmer is providing manure in exchange for the feed. So this expands the boundary of the farm And in such a way, it means these two farms are a system, and when they are working together, they are a closed system. So this is how the boundaries can be expanded for one farm. Selecting appropriate crops that would improve soil fertility is another way to close the cycle so that the nutrients are optimally used by the plants. Designing and implementation of proper crop rotation systems to achieve a balanced nutrient budget. These nutrient budgets are planned according to what the crop you are growing this season would require and the next one would require. If one crop is requiring more phosphorus this season, then you might need to plant a crop that will require more potassium next season, such that the potassium thirsty plant will actually give leave to the phosphorus for that particular season. Closing cycles through returning harvested phosphorus and other nutrients to the farm. For example, if you are a coffee farmer, you could bring back the husk, although now it has competing uses where, for example, factories that are manufacturing cement are using too much of this coffee husk, but that is detrimental to the nutrients that are available in nature. High rate of phosphorus and potassium recycling as a result of leaving straw and other crop residues in the field at post-harvest handling. So we do not need to carry the entire crop to the barn or to the store, but rather we would take only what is required for consumption. And also integrating trees into the farming system will help harvest nutrients from deeper layers of the soil and bring them on the top layers of the soil, and hence make them available and be able to recycle them to the plants, back to the soil, and again to the plants. So we pick interest, we talked about the legumes, that nitrogen is one of the key nutrients that are required by crops in large quantities. So it's a macronutrient, and that the process through which it returns to the soil, or it's made available in the soil to the plants, is quite limited. The lightning is fixing very small amounts in nature, and therefore we can facilitate this process by planting more legumes in the farming system. So the use of legumes for fertility building in crop rotation system is very key in supplying nitrogen within agroecological farming systems, utilizing the symbiosis between nitrogen-fixing bacteria and legume roots. There are some exceptions to this, including the use of free-living azolla to fix nitrogen in paddy rice systems. So if you are planting paddy rice and you integrate azolla, then you are doing the same as the legume cover crops would be doing. Legumes can be integrated in cropping systems as green manure, polycultures, particularly during the, we call managed fallowing, where instead of letting land grow into bush, we integrate legume crops during that fallow period, so that the land is continuously under production, but the soil is actually being recovered. Longer term lays, where mixtures of grasses, legumes, and other species are grown as herbage for livestock. This way we can also integrate legumes in the farming system. Both grain and forage herbage legumes are relevant, but particularly legumes are better than grain. Forage legumes, for example, mucuna pruriens, are usually more effective than grain legumes in terms of providing nutrients to crops, because forage legumes capture more carbon, leaving significant quantities of residual root biomass and helping rebuild soil organic matter levels in cropping sequences. So in a rotation, it is very good to integrate legumes, because they are also not only good at fixing nitrogen, but also in rebuilding the soil organic matter, in biomass accumulation above ground, but also underground biomass, which are key in ensuring a correct organic matter content in the soil. We see here a field where mucuna pruriens is integrated in a monocropped banana field, but with its integration is actually bringing in the diversification. You can see that it is also supplementing the dead mulch to suppress the weeds. So at the same time, it is contributing to the ability to practice minimum tillage, and therefore it is playing multiple roles and contributing numerous positive benefits to this farming system. We earlier on talked about microbial activities in the soil, and here we bring this because we are talking about nitrogen fixation, which is contributed by the nitrogen fixing bacteria that is one of the microbial organisms in the soil. So an abundant and diverse soil microbial community sustains productivity of an agroecosystem. Microorganisms perform many soil biological processes. To varying extents, plants actively regulate the microbe community in their rhizosphere through molecular communication, root exudates to suit their needs. We know actually that plants, and particularly trees, communicate through the chemicals they release in the soil, and these are communicated by the microbial organisms in the soil, particularly the fungi. And so the plants regulate the microbial activity in the soil, but also the microbial activity in the soil contributes to the well-being of these plants. This is important for symbiotic nitrogen fixation and for nutrient release from the breakdown of soil organic matter and chemical weathering of soil minerals by acids released by microbes. The microbial communities have different roles. For example, agroforestry. Alley cropping systems are known for increasing microbial diversity and enzyme activity, particularly due to differences in litter quality and the root exudates. The complex microorganism communities of the plant above and particularly below ground are crucial for plant health and are also referred to as the second genome of the plant. So selecting suitable crops and practicing appropriate crop rotations, composting and organic matter additions counteract the suppressive effect on soil-borne diseases. This is very key in the resilience of any farming system, because we know that from the soil to the plant to the animals, is how the energy is flowing from the sun, and therefore these linkages are very important to understand and optimize on the farm. We will continue to talk about the role of soil microbial communities in our next session. I would like to thank you for being part of this session.